I'll just ask one more question before kind of opening it up to everybody else. But so recently you've written on VC about the importance of sort of controlling your own social presence online, very actively posting content, etc. And you've also sort of been involved in several very lively debates, ComScore and Zynga, and several of these other things. And so I wonder if you can talk a little bit about this sort of new development of sort of controlling one's online presence, and whether or not you think this is going to sort of overtake kind of traditional PR in this kind of space.
Well, so there's a couple of themes there that you've asked about. So the specific thing about controlling your online brand actually came out of a panel that I was on last Friday at the Student Center around the corner as part of the Media and Entertainment Conference. So I guess NYU, Columbia, and MIT and Duke and Wharton together put on a conference with media and entertainment executives, and so that I was on the social media panel, and the question came up, you know, when you go out for a job, you know, people are going to look at your Facebook page, or look at your Twitter feed, maybe your blog, and you know, do you need to be nervous about what's on there, and you know, employer's not going to hire you because of that. And David Karp from Tumblr, who's one of our portfolio CEOs and founder of Tumblr, and was on the panel, basically said that you know, you need to be careful about what you put on, you know, Facebook or Twitter or your blog, but you need to be somewhat careful about if you think you're posting something that's private on Facebook, you need to be careful about what your privacy settings are and how many people are your friends. But his larger point was that it's way more important to have a social media presence and have a positive social media presence than to be afraid of, you know, somebody tagged you in a photo on Facebook that was unflattering. And his point was, the more that you engage with a social media presence, the more you can sort of overpower all those other things, because you can't really control those other things. You can't really control that someone might tag you in a photo, or you can't really control that someone might say something bad about you somewhere on the internet. But what you can do is you can build a very well-known, you know, frequently updated social media presence, and that the way social media systems and search works is that the highly updated, you know, dynamic live blogs and social media feeds and presences are going to be promoted in the system, and that you can essentially drown out the negative noise. And I went on and blogged about that and said, you know, that I basically agree with David, and that more than that, we actually have hired every junior investment professional we've hired, and we've hired based on their blog. In other words, we didn't ask for a resume, we asked for just a link, and then we went and read the blog, and then on the basis of that we decided who we were going to invite in for an interview. So we didn't ask for where they went to college, we didn't ask for what, you know, where they'd worked before, whether they spoke, you know, French or Spanish or any of that stuff. We just wanted to see how they wrote, what they wrote about, and how they presented themselves, and how they even designed the page, and what it said about them. And I was talking to my daughter about this the other day, and she said, well, you know, how would somebody, you know, use my blog? How would somebody, you know anything about me on my blog? I mostly post photos. And I said to her, well, you know, but the photos you post are, and they're not just her photos. I mean, she reblogs photos that she finds on the internet. She's very into fashion and entertainment and art and things like that. And I said, you know, actually, you know, if somebody who didn't know you went to your blog, they would know a lot about you, honestly. And I think, you know, for somebody who's in business school, I would, and has a particular interest, a particular domain, whether it's clean tech or biotech or internet or you know, social entrepreneurship or you know, anything, you know, to write about that interest and to express yourself and the things that you care about and what you're reading and what you believe in and what you don't believe in, to me is way better than a resume. And it speaks to your curiosity and your intelligence and your ability to communicate in the written form, which I think has a lot to do with your ability to communicate orally. So anyway, I'm a big fan of that, and I would encourage everybody who has you know, the time and the desire to do that. You asked another question, which was, you know, some of the controversies that I've gotten involved in with the Zynga thing with Arrington or the ComScore thing with Calcanis, and you know, I just don't want to be bullied. You know, I'm not going to let people, you know, trash me on the internet without hitting back. And you know, I think the common wisdom that you would get from a PR person would be that that's not the right way to behave. That you should just turn the other cheek and you know, and let it die out, and a day later nobody will be talking about it. But if Jason Calcanis writes that, you know, Fred Wilson is corrupt and immoral, I'm just not going to let that stand. It's not right. It's not true. And you know, I just don't think that's worth letting sit out there unresponded to. So, you know, it's I think inevitable in this day and age when people can write whatever they want to write, and lots of people are carrying around printing presses and megaphones, and people are going to say things about you that aren't true. And I think the more well-known you become, the more of a target you are for that. And you know, I think that this is going to be a skill set that people are going to have to develop. I'm not sure that I'm doing it right, but doing it the way I feel like doing it, and that's what I'm going to do. So that's my answer to that question.
That's great. Thanks.